What's going on, guys? We're looking at a sell-off across the board today. We just got CPI, and you can tell, as evidenced behind me, that it didn't go too well. For the most part, the whole market's selling off a little bit. The Bitcoin miners, 90% of them are down. But in this video, we're gonna briefly glance over CPI. We're gonna talk about what's going on with Bitcoin. We're gonna talk about some regulators in Hong Kong expediting the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And we're also gonna talk about a catalyst that's coming up very soon, and it's not the halving. Now, if you guys get something useful out of this, you know what to do, and let's get started. So the CPI for March came out, and it's not very favorable. And now the first expected rate cut is at some point in September. CPI, other inflation metrics are not going in the direction that we have hoped. It's making it less and less and less likely that we're gonna see anywhere near 3 rate cuts. At this point, I'd say we're lucky if we see 1, maybe 2. Now, I'll leave that article down below for you. I know I didn't look over it, but if you want more details on CPI, I think that's a pretty good article to look at. You can see on the year-over-year chart, CPI is basically, for the most part, flat. We just cannot get under that 3%. In fact, we're going up from there. I do personally expect CPI overall to slowly trend back down towards 3 until it finally breaks 3. Now, some people are asking about potential for rate hikes. I don't see that coming, but I do certainly see the potential for less rate cuts this year. Maybe 1, maybe 2, like I said, maybe 0. That's another thing to consider. 0 rate cuts is possibly on the table this year. Also, guys, look out for the Fed minutes. It's coming out later today. It's not out as of this upload, but look out for it. Now, Bitcoin had its false breakout the other day. We are back in this range. And if we head down to the lower level of this range, we're looking at around 66,000 or so, 65,000. This would be right at our 50 MA. If we bounce here, that would be a great sign. If we break it, that wouldn't be good. I personally think Bitcoin is going to hold up pretty well as we approach the halving. We've got like 9 days left. We are still in an overall bullish trend. I wanted to show you guys the 50, 200, and 100 EMA as well. And there's potential for us to head down like 65,000. Where the 50 MA was is also where the 50 EMA is right around. The 50 EMA is a little lower. So just watch out for the 50 EMA and the 50 MA. This could be a bouncing off point for Bitcoin if we do break this pattern. To me, you got to be buying Bitcoin while it's under its previous all-time high. Yes, while it's under 70,000, while it's under 69,000, you got to be taking advantage of Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to be under 70,000 for very much longer. This, in my opinion, is some of the last moments to be bullish on Bitcoin, at least if you're looking at the 4-year cycle. I believe it's always time to be bullish on Bitcoin if you at least have a 3 to 4 year time horizon. But if you're just playing it based on the cycle, I do think we're running out of time to buy. We've got a few months left, maybe. We also have some pretty big news here. There's an update on the Hong Kong spot Bitcoin ETFs. The SFC, or the Securities Regulatory Commission of Hong Kong, has reportedly expedited the approval process for 4 spot Bitcoin ETFs, with the first batch being approved in the region by April 15th, right around the halving. And according to multiple sources, this first batch is going to include 4 spot Bitcoin ETF applicants. And after the SFC greenlights the initial set of spot Bitcoin ETFs, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange will require approximately 2 weeks to finalize listing procedures and related arrangements. So these spot Bitcoin ETFs for Hong Kong might be out in the market very, very soon, right after the halving. Now, I want to talk about something, I've talked about this a couple times, but I want to talk about something that's coming up right around when the halving is going to hit. And this is the flipping of GBTC and Ibit. Currently, as of the 9th, okay, as of the 9th, so yesterday, this is going to change. This will probably be 200 to 300 million lower. But GBTC, current assets under management, is right around 22 billion, just a little shy of $22 billion, okay? And then we have Ibit. This is as of the 9th as well. Their net assets is 18.2 billion. They are right around $3 billion from flipping each other. At the rate that GBTC outflows are going and Ibit inflows are going, we should see these flip soon after the halving. I would say every right around 5 days or so. I mean, it really depends on volume and everything. Things change constantly. But I would say right around an average of about 5 days. Every 5 days, they should get about $1 billion closer to each other. Give it about 2 weeks or so, and I'd say they are going to flip. So this is another huge catalyst coming. This is going to probably be right after the halving. But there's another big catalyst coming for Bitcoin, for the spot Bitcoin ETFs. The market will breathe a sigh of relief once we see that Grayscale has been flipped. Now, just because that happens, it doesn't mean we won't still see net outflows from Grayscale necessarily, but it'll be a sign that, Grayscale is getting less and less power and Ibit is getting more power. On the long term, this isn't necessarily great. Ibit is going to be a larger and larger holder of Bitcoin. Eventually, I believe they'll probably see 5% of the whole Bitcoin supply, maybe 10% over time. Before you know it, Ibit will hold 1 million Bitcoin in their holdings. But you got to remember, it isn't BlackRock solely that is holding the Bitcoin. It is the holders of their funds. But the point is, we are going to see these flip, and I think that will be big for the market. And of course, we have the halving only about 9 days away, a little over a week away. Right after the halving hits, I do believe we'll see GBTC and Ibit flip each other. And next is seeing FBTC eventually flip GBTC as well. But that, I believe, will come much later in the cycle. Now, I do want to give you guys a quick update on CleanSpark. All the miners are basically selling off right now, with the exception of Cypher. And funny enough, Sphere 3D was doing pretty well at first, but now it's falling with all the other miners. Now, right now, I see this descending channel that CleanSpark is in. I do think there is potential we break 15. If we don't, look for a breakout of this resistance line, this descending resistance. This might change our recent downtrend here. Now, if we do break 15, I've been saying we'll probably hit 14, and that's not just because it's $1 down, $1 lower, and it's the easiest next call. It's because it was a previous support. We had it as a bouncing off point here, right here at 14. And it was also a resistance for us back at the end of 2023. On our last run here, it found it as a resistance and we pulled back. Once we broke that resistance, we did bounce, we back tested it, found it as support, and continued rallying. I do think if we break 15, the market is going to try to test 14. But here's the reality, looking at CleanSpark by the end of this year, looking at CleanSpark by the end of this bull cycle, I don't think it's going to matter very much if you bought CleanSpark at 14 versus 15. So my opinion is don't wait around for 14, 13, 12, wait for the gap fill. You need to be buying as we're low. I don't think we're going to be low for much longer. And to me at least, what I just said goes for all the miners. I don't think these miners are going to be low for much longer. Once we get past the halving, I do think they're going to start rallying. I could be wrong in that thinking, but that's just what I think. And one thing that I've mentioned to you guys is shortly after the halving, these miners are going to be reporting their earnings from the first quarter of this year, where Bitcoin went from the 40s to 70,000. The last quarter these miners reported was a quarter where Bitcoin's average range was right around 35,000. And some miners did see profitability there, specifically CleanSpark and Cypher. I do expect many of the miners to see profitability in the quarter covering January, February, and March, where Bitcoin rallied all the way to 70,000. I also do expect some of these miners to see profitability in the quarters after the halving. Maybe not the quarter right after the halving, but the quarters at the end of 2024, I do expect a lot of these miners to see profitability. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're going to see a lot of profitable Bitcoin miners this time around this cycle compared to last cycle? Do you think they're not going to see profitability? Do you think Bitcoin's going to tank? And when do you think Grayscale and BlackRock will flip? I personally think we're looking at a little bit after the halving, maybe a week after the halving or so, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but it is coming, probably about 2 weeks away from now. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.